All right, welcome back to Diagnosis Redefined. I am your host, Erica Anderson, and this is a big episode today. I hope you are ready. This is a subject I have been wanting to talk about on this podcast for a long time. It has been rolling around in my brain forever, and I just felt a little overwhelmed on how in the world to organize all this because it's absolutely crazy. And to be honest, as I was doing research for this episode, I feel like that meme that I don't know what movie or TV show how this meme got passed around, but it's the guy standing in front of the wall with all the red strings pointing in one direction. He's standing there with a crazed look in his eyes pointing at it. That is me right now as I have been researching for this episode. I'm like, this is insane. I cannot wait to dive into this together. And yeah, just be ready. This is a big one. I'm going to do the best I can to try to communicate this in the most organized, articulate way. I've got notes in front of me, so bear with me. But this is a big topic that I feel like everyone really needs to understand. And the goal is, one, we need to understand how we got here when it comes to our healthcare system. The pill for every ill model that is not helping those of us who are dealing with chronic illnesses, that's for sure, which is an absolute epidemic right now. How do we navigate the current healthcare system? Because it is useful. There are some great things happening in modern healthcare, but how do we be our own advocates and navigate this system? And so I'm going to go into all of that in this episode. And I really hope you guys are ready for your mind to be blown on this one. And I just want to start out with this question of who would you consider to be the father of modern medicine? Most people would say Hippocrates because the Hippocratic Oath, which doctors take to swear to do no harm, that sort of thing, that is named after Hippocrates. He has always been thought of as the father of modern medicine. But what if I told you that the father of modern medicine was actually an oil tycoon? Yeah. In fact, it was John D. Rockefeller himself. He is the reason for the pill for every ill model, the true model that we have today where holistic practitioners are sometimes thought of as quacks. So we're going to talk about the history behind that and also how insurance companies today force practitioners to not be able to get to the root cause of the chronic illness epidemic. So by the end of the episode, I want you to be able to see the real bigger picture and understand the forces that are at play in the healthcare system to empower you to be able to question and be your own advocate when it comes to your health and to have more control over your own healthcare. So starting off, before the pharmaceutical industry that we now know as it is today, before all of that happened, medicine wasn't just about all of these pills and, throwing a pill at every symptom. Doctors and herbalists would use herbs to be able to treat symptoms. They would also use diet and lifestyle changes as the first go-to, not the last resort. And the idea was to try to restore balance within the body. Now, this holistic approach had a focus on healing, prevention, nutrition, and natural remedies. That's what it used to be before the early 1900s. But in the early 1900s, things started to change. So John D. Rockefeller, a giant oil tycoon at that time, he became one of the wealthiest men in history, and he realized he could make money not only from oil, but from medicine. And in particular, he was having to diversify his company anyway, because the U.S. government was beginning to take action to break up companies like his were monopolies, which this actually led to the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1911, which forced Standard Oil to be broken into several smaller companies. So Rockefeller, looking to diversify his company, he wanted to obviously maintain his wealth and influence. So this is where he started investing in companies like pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and medical education. So why would he? Seems like a strange shift to go from oil to pharmaceutical companies. Well, it turns out that many of the chemicals that were being used for pharmaceuticals at the time were petroleum-based chemicals. So, like the name sounds, these are chemicals that are derived from oil. Perfect. Perfect for John D. Rockefeller to be able to use his company for. So he started to see that this opportunity and started backing the development of synthetic chemicals and drugs made from petroleum. He started to invest in companies like Merck and Eli Lilly, which helped lay the foundation for what became a booming pharmaceutical industry. Now, it wasn't enough for John D. Rockefeller to just develop these medicines. He had to make sure people were actually going to take them, right, and start using them. The problem was he had a lot of holistic doctors and naturopaths and everything using the remedies that they've been using for centuries, and that was a real problem for Rockefeller. So he funded a report called the Flexner Report. Now, this is in 1910. This report was authored by Abraham Flexner, and it shaped U.S. medical schools and pushed for pharmaceutical-based treatments and dismissed natural medicine as ineffective. So the Flexner Report restructured medical education and contributed to the marginalization of holistic medicine. Doctors were trained to focus on pharmaceutical solutions, and medical practices that emphasized any natural or preventative care were sidelined. Now, sidelined is a real understatement here. They were forced out, and they even faced jail time if they practiced outside of this pharmaceutical model. In fact, the American Medical Association in particular took aggressive action by encouraging police to address holistic practitioners, to jail them, and actually call these holistic practitioners quacks. Yeah, we've all heard that term before, right? Quacks. So yeah, labeling them as quacks, making them seem illegitimate to the general public. And actually, Rockefeller, he started funding medical schools, and he would withhold funding any schools that taught any holistic practices like nutrition and things like that. So this is really where the big shift happened. This is the birth of modern pharmaceutical-driven medicine that we see today. And that's why I call Rockefeller the true father of modern medicine. And it's really, really dark if you think about it, that our modern medicine was driven by a greedy oil tycoon who was just looking to keep all of his wealth and influence. But yes, that is how we got here. So this really set the stage for what we have today, a healthcare system that is more focused on treating symptoms rather than getting to the root cause and basically matching a pill for every symptom. Really crazy, isn't it? So what has that done for us today with this healthcare model? So we are living in the aftermath of this shift. We have a healthcare system where prescription drugs are the first line of treatment, not the last resort. Despite this focus on pharmaceuticals, though, what have been the results? We have seen skyrocketing numbers of chronic disease like diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune diseases. For example, 6 in 10 adults in the U.S. have a chronic disease, and 4 in 10 have 2 or more. That is a staggering statistic. This pharmaceutical model isn't just failing us, it's actually making our health problems worse. Because every year, chronic diseases account for 7 out of 10 deaths in the U.S. Yet the solution often remains the same, a pill to mask the symptoms. Now, check out the previous podcast episode I did about 5 red flags to look out for in functional medicine, because we talk about how not addressing the root causes just perpetuates more and more chronic illness. So we talked about that in the last episode if you want to learn more about that. It ties in with this really well. For example, a lot of these chronic illnesses, these are lifestyle-driven illnesses, and yet the focus is not to change the lifestyle. The focus is to cover the symptom within every pill. So it's no wonder that when someone has been diagnosed with one of these lifestyle-driven illnesses, including things like type 2 diabetes, they are going to develop more lifestyle-driven illnesses like heart disease, which is often goes hand in hand together. Now, don't get me wrong. I am very thankful for many things that has happened in the modern medical field. I mean, I am very glad that we live in the time that we do. I mean, the discovery of x-rays that allows us to be able to see what's going on in someone's body without cutting them open. Antibiotics, even though they have been overused, it has caused problems that way. Antibiotics, we also don't have people dying of infection like they did before. And so there are several things, blood transfusions, organ transplants. I am not saying that there's not things within the modern medical system that are fantastic. When it comes to acute things, the modern healthcare system is above and beyond amazing and life-saving. But it just really drops the ball when it comes to chronic illness. All right, so let's talk about, though, another aspect of the healthcare system, especially here in the United States, that is very problematic and keeps doctors, even well-intentioned doctors, from being able to address root causes, and that is insurance companies. So if you feel like you've been to the doctor and, they rush through the appointment with you, some of that is insurance-driven. Big corporate hospitals, insurance companies, they dictate how doctors practice medicine. And these doctors are often forced to see as many patients as possible in one day to meet financial targets. And it doesn't allow for any type of personalized care when they're not able to talk to their patients for more than 8 minutes. It's absolutely insane. If you want to learn more about this, I highly recommend reading the book Good Energy. Dr. Casey Means goes into detail about her experience as a doctor in the conventional medical system and how she was forced to see as many patients as possible, and that she was seeing that these hospitals are paying doctors based on the numbers of patients they see, not on the quality of care or the outcomes they achieve. And they also have incentives to focus on treating symptoms and rather than addressing the root causes. So incentives to prescribe more medication, incentives to do more testing rather than getting to addressing diet and lifestyle changes. They are paid based on the number of ICD-9 codes that they can code for during appointments and how many diagnoses they can come up with based off these appointments. So this leads to more focus on symptoms rather than on root cause. When it comes to any doctor who is wanting to start using holistic practices or focus on root cause treatments, a lot of times they will run into issues with the insurance companies because when the insurance companies, for example, if they don't like the tests that the doctors are testing for, maybe there's a lot of lab tests that the insurance companies are going, hey, this isn't necessary, but the doctor feels it's necessary to get to the root cause, or if the doctor is focused on nutrition, diet, lifestyle changes, these insurance companies will actually punish these doctors by putting them out of network. And so doctors have lost tons of patients because suddenly they are not able to see patients because they're out of network now. So that is one way that insurance companies are actually controlling the healthcare system right now and what the doctors can do. So if you're seeing a doctor who is using insurance, a lot of times their hands are tied as far as how much they can help you when it comes to root cause solutions. And it forces them to have to just manage symptoms. And again, perpetuating this symptom-based healthcare system. So when we hear all this, you might just be like, wow, our healthcare system is broken. What do we even do? And I don't want you to feel helpless. That is never the point of the podcast. Certainly not. I want you to understand how you can actually become an advocate for your own health and understand that your doctor and your medical team, imagine that when it comes to your health, you are the CEO sitting at the table. You get to decide who sits at that table. And so if you have a doctor that you feel like isn't listening to you, that you feel like if you ask certain questions, they get upset, like you're questioning them, if you feel like they think that they are an authority over you, get a second opinion, find another doctor. That would be my number one thing. If you have a doctor that is not being curious, find another doctor. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions. And if they don't know the answer, that it does not necessarily mean they can't be your doctor. Again, curiosity is key. Are they willing to research? Are they willing to check their own bias? So I do believe that conventional doctors, there is a role for them in our health and are necessary, but you want to find one that will listen to you. And then, of course, you can always seek out functional medicine. Again, when it comes to your health, you are sitting at a table. There's plenty of people that can be on your healthcare team. So while you have a conventional doctor, you can also have a functional medicine practitioner as well that can be supporting you when it comes to your health goals. They can work hand in hand together. And if you're wondering what to look for in a functional medicine practitioner, again, the previous episode is talking all about 5 red flags to look out for when you're seeking out a functional medicine practitioner. So check that out to learn more about that so that you are prepared to know who to look for, who's actually practicing functional medicine and who is not. And in the end, it's up to us as patients to push for better care. And we're seeing this happen. We're seeing this grassroots movement when it comes to better healthcare. And in fact, we're seeing some good changes when it comes to the healthcare system. I've been watching the news quite a bit. RFK Jr. now in his new role as HHS secretary, he is doing amazing. So one of the things that just came out this past week is that he has announced plans to cut federal funding to medical schools that fail to incorporate nutrition education into their curriculum. So he revealed that only 22% of U.S. medical schools meet the recommended minimum of 25 hours of nutrition education, which is insane. Dr. Casey Means testified that she had received 0 education on nutrition as a doctor. And this focus on nutrition, this is where we're going to see real changes when it comes to the chronic illness epidemic. This is the huge disconnect between doctors and their patients and the outcomes that they're seeing and the rise of chronic illness in the United States is this lack of education on how much nutrition affects our health. It seems for most lay people to be pretty obvious that what you put in your body is going to affect your health. But it has been, as we talked about throughout the history of modern medicine, it was pretty much squashed as not important. The pills are more important. So now we're seeing this grassroots movement of people demanding more for their healthcare, and we're also seeing it reflected in some changes higher up, which is fantastic because we can do a lot by advocating for our own health, but ultimately we do need to see some regulations changes and better education when it comes to our doctors. So I was glad to see that, and I hope that that becomes a reality in the near future. So that is the history of how we came to be in this system, this pill for every ill. And I hope that it inspired you to question the status quo, to advocate for your own health, but also to remember that you are the most important person when it comes to your health. You are ultimately responsible when it comes to your health. And so just remembering that you sit at that table as CEO of your health. You dictate who is on your healthcare team. And there is so much within your control when it comes to your health. So that ultimately is what I hope you get out of this. Not that this is some big, scary healthcare system that we can't navigate. You can navigate it. There are benefits to it. We're seeing some great changes, but it's so imperative to be aware of the origins of where this is all coming from so that we know how to get out of it. So thank you for tuning in to Diagnosis Redefined. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.